Hey, it's me, Gazbot, getting ready for G-Fest in Chicago, Illinois, 2018. I've talked about this before, the beauty of the fuel rod for conventions, for a flight. It's like 20 bucks. I bought one years ago, and I can still take an empty one, throw it in a machine, and get it fully charged. Click. Well, I'm in Chicago. The flight wasn't very long. I was able to get a window seat. My backpack, it's killing my back. And this is a big airport, in case you don't know. It took me like 15 minutes walking as fast as I could directly from my gate to get the baggage, which is unusual. And it felt even longer because my bag is so heavy. I didn't weigh it because I didn't have to, but it wouldn't shock me to find out that it was 40, 50 pounds, just as heavy as some of the bags that I packed. I also have, this is my carry-on, which did fit, but the zipper is busted, so I had to duct tape it closed. Both of these got looked at by TSA. My backpack, because I had the pins, I have like plastic boxes full of pins they needed to inspect. The other one, I guess, because there's poles, which could be guns or something, I don't know. But they had to unduct tape it and reduct tape it with the same duct tape, so that was fun. My buddy Kyle is gonna be picking me up, but the plane was running a little late and now I have to wait for my bags. So he is at a Starbucks nearby, and I'm gonna let him know when the bags come out. Hopefully mine won't be last. That's it. Well, I have not done a good job of documenting the day. It is 3:45 in the morning. Buddy Kyle picked me up. We got, well, I got some pizza. He had already had dinner. Came back, talked for a while, then went out to see The Running Man.
And here I am with the Running Man poster. This is the one we saw in America, but they also had this other one, which I think was European, which I kind of prefer. I was at this cool theater, the name of which I do not remember, but it was walking distance from my buddy's house, and they served fancy soda and beer.
The Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, which is playing walking distance from his house for free. So that was awesome. And then we talked for hours more, and now I'm going to bed. I will get about 4.5 to 5 hours sleep and catch breakfast and go set up at the show. So that's my bad decision making, but I don't care because friendship and The Running Man.
So it was moved last year. It was upstairs where there's now a restaurant. So we were downstairs kind of in this basement, and everybody was worried that no one would find it and that it would be a bad spot, et cetera, but it ended up being fine. Most of us were fit in the room. It was a little bit cramped. There was a few people who had to be in the hallway, but as you could see when the doors opened, it was pretty busy. There were people waiting to get in, which is pretty awesome. Usually with Artist Alley, people are waiting to get in other areas and they make it on their way over to us. But this one was good. Here you can see part of my display, and that table next to me was empty, so I moved my art over, and the person on the other side moved their art over. My table mate neighbor, whatever, on the right side showed up, I don't know, an hour or two late. And this is my new setup. It's not new anymore, but at this show it was the first time I did it, and it worked out pretty well. I have a video talking about that, which I'll put the link to below. Did a headshot. Had a decent day the first day. There was a lot of fun stuff to look at. I didn't see much of it. This was all stuff I took on the way in or at a bathroom break. And just like that, the day was over. But I quick ran over because the dealer's hall was open, I think an hour or two later than we were. So I just, like this, what you're looking at here is almost real time. I kind of ran through, spent about 10 minutes. I did find a couple things. I got an Ultraman shirt and a couple other knickknacks, some vinyl Sentai Power Ranger figures, and a really good deal on a Beetleborg, not a Beetleborg, it's a Power Rangers Battleborg. It was in the package, but the package was messed up, but I didn't care because I opened them anyway. And yeah, there's a lot of really cool stuff to look at, but like I said, I blew through in about 10 minutes and pretty much bought everything that I bought at the con, with the exception of a photo I got later. And yeah, it's tough because a show like this, I would attend as a fan and have fun. This is my second time there, and both times it's almost like I didn't go. You know what I mean? I didn't get to go to any of the panels. Last time I didn't even meet any of the guests, and both times I just sort of ran through the dealer hall as quick as I could. I don't regret it, but I'm just saying it's interesting when you go as a fan of the subject matter, and it's not like a normal Comic-Con. It's like so specialized and it happens so infrequently that it's not like, well, the next Comic-Con I go to, I can, get some Spider-Man comics or whatever. And here you can see the haul, the Ultraman t-shirt, the Battleborg, the 3 vinyls from GoOnger/RPM, art print that I traded with the gentleman next to me, who is is Joe Giuseppe. I'll put a link to his stuff below. He goes by 2 different names. He's kaiju artist. He does a lot of wood, like plant-based kaiju stuff. It's pretty unique. I also picked up an independent kaiju comic by Hiroshi Kantani, I believe is how you pronounce his last name. I'm probably getting that wrong. But I've seen him around. We're like Instagram buddies and stuff. I feel like I know who he is and he doesn't know who I am. But anyway, I got his book and I got Matt Frank's new book. Matt Frank is kind of the famous American Godzilla artist, and he's working on Red Band now. And I got the Japanese version, and it was actually the last version last copy he had, just as luck would have it. So that was cool. Let's see what I talk about on my way home.
Hey, look at me! It's loud! It's too loud to do this. Hello, children, men, people, dog, farts, and farts that don't like being farts, and everyone else. I am walking. Got out of the show, did a 10-minute walk to a train, to a bus, to a 10-minute walk to Kyle's house. That's what I'm doing now. There was no service in Artist Alley. I couldn't take credit cards. I couldn't do updates onto Instagram, things like that. And here comes the sun. Gonna shoot my eyes. Oh, shoot my eyes. Okay, hold on. Hold on. There, the eye shooting is done. It also was very busy and crowded to the point where I felt like I couldn't really film. I certainly couldn't do this kind of talking because my neighbors were right next to me and there was no like thing to hide behind, and there was just constantly customers, which is a good thing, but not so great for reporting. So that is why I'm reporting to you now. As I was saying, it's hot. I'm also tired because, as I said, I got like 3-4 hours sleep last night. There was a free water dispenser in the hallway you could use, and upstairs they had food and Starbucks and things like that. So towards the end of the day, I got a bottle of water and a Starbucks, and I did use the free water once, but it was difficult to leave my table because I'm watching by myself, but normally I don't mind stepping away, but it was busy most of the time, which is a good problem to have. But also, the way they were set up, they're right next to each other, and you had to climb underneath to get in or out, which is not great. And it's also, when it's all crowded, to crawl out. It's like, excuse me, I'm being born under the table here. So there's that. Overall, though, all the worries about it being in the basement have been allayed, assuaged. Most of the people there knew it was in the basement. There was a lot of signage. There was a line of like 50 people at least waiting to get in Artist Alley, which is great. And part of the reason for that is because the main showroom floor with all the dealers didn't open until 2, and we opened at 12. Then we closed at 5, and the dealer room stayed open until 7, which I thought was great. It staggered it so that the artists could shop and the vendors could buy art. And it just really worked out well. And as for my day, I did well. I forget how much my plane ticket cost. I definitely made table back for sure. I don't think I've made my plane ticket back yet, but I did pretty good, especially for a Friday. So if tomorrow I do as good as today, I'll at least make my money back. If I do better, then I'm already making profit. The big seller today, pins. I sold $80 of pins. And I am out of many of them because normally I have my pin cases, and they have, 6 of each design or so. Some of them I have more if they're more popular. And then I have a box to restock with. But because I flew and there was a weight limit and everything else, I just brought what I had, figuring it would mostly be fine. But like halfway through today, I ran out of a few pins, like Mothra and certain Godzillas. I still have some. They're still selling. People are loving the pins. But again, $80 in pins, that's a lot. I did not expect that. Which just goes to show, once again, have small price points, have bookmarks, have stickers, have pins, have something small that people could glom onto, and it adds up quick. I'm bummed that I'm going to be out of so many that I would otherwise use tomorrow. I'm almost to Kyle's house, I think, so we'll have to resume this later.
What was I talking about? I don't remember. I went to this small art exhibit gallery with my buddies from Chicago, and they've done a good job of showing me fun stuff and events and restaurants both times I visited them. They're good people. They make Chicago seem like a good place to live. I don't know if it really would be, but for short bursts when I visit, it sure is fun. This was the main artist we were looking at, the ones on the right there. They knew the artist, or at least Kyle did, from a class he took, and I met her and she was nice. And then back to the trenches for some more G-Fest. You can see my buttons were decimated. I had empty slots, which I normally don't. And the crowds were once again good. Overall, the crowds were always busy. The sales were decent. I would have preferred if they were better, as always, but, there was always a crowd, so I can't fault them for that. And here I am coming through. I think this was just a quick walkthrough I did. Hey, that's an Ultraman shirt I have that I bought there. I bet you that person bought it the day before and was like, I'm going to wear that tomorrow. I've done that before too. There's no shame in it. There's someone's shoulder. This is some terrible camera work. They had a pinball machine, a couple other things. That's Mr. Matty Frank, and I think Jeff Zorno was next to him there. And we're coming up. What's going to be on the left? Is it going to be my table? No, it's more people. Somebody standing around. There's my table with nobody watching it. And here, once again, I'm pointing out the buttons have now moved down to just one case, and I made a display for the Horror A4. I have two sort of vertical and then two piles of each issue that people could touch and grab. I tried to make it really accessible. Despite that, as usual, did not do very well with my comic. I sold a few. This is the alleyway, or hallway, I should say, where they had the overflow of Artist Alley. Some people had already packed up. It was usually a little more full than that. I thought it would be a bad place to be, but people said they did okay there because everyone had to pass it as they're going through. And this room had a bunch of props and you know, suit pieces. I don't know that any of them were original. I got the impression that they were remakes, you know, done in the style of, but not actually original pieces. And they had one of the original suit designers in that room answering questions and things like that. These are some commissions I got. That Ingyrus was an actual commission. This Biolante was a free sketch I did for a kid. I did a couple free kid sketches. I do them a lot quicker and smaller. And what I tend to do is blast them with some heavy blacks to make them look a little more finished. And then this is just me taking pictures with some stuff around the con. Oh, here's another piece. It wasn't a commission. It was me doing the horror as though somebody had commissioned it. Just practicing with my Copics and keeping busy, you know. And I think I may have thrown that up on the table, but again, people weren't exactly clamoring for my comics, so the ancillary things are not going to do as well. And again, I did sell a few copies of my comic, but it always a more general interest sort of Comic-Con situation. There's cosplayers here. You can see a woman who was Ella King, but she was like, I think they're called Kaiju Girls or something. It's like a spin-off. This guy did his own Godzilla Sentai Power Rangers character, which was kind of cool. And I guess he commissioned people to build the suit, and he had commissioned me to do a drawing of the Megazord, which you may have seen before, which is like the Godzilla Megazord. I forget the actual name. That sign you just saw was the Dojo Studios. They do sort of live action filming at this, where they do kind of tokusatsu Godzilla stuff, and then they show it at the end or next year. I'm not sure when they actually show it. It seems really cool. I've never really been able to look at it or get involved with it because I'm working.
Made his day.
At the end of the day, I hooked up with Mike Emmerich, my 100s art buddy, and Mel, and we went to Mary's Hamburger in Chicago. Well, I'm in Chicago, obviously. They came out and picked me up. They had a car, which I did not. And this place is really cool. I'd wanted to go there last time I was in town, but it was closed. It's got cool decor, and it's actually like a drag club too, so they have performances. We thought about staying for a performance, but we wanted to be able to talk, and it was, you know, we had limited time, and so if I lived in the area or any other day, we probably would have stayed. It was even a Golden Girls themed performance, which seems awesome. But again, we ate and the food was good, and then we decided to walk and go get some dessert so that we could chat and catch up rather than watch a show and not talk to each other. This bathroom was fantastic. It had a disco ball going, and it was all crazy. And I opened the door, and it opened in, and I opened it in like all the way almost to the wall there, kind of like where the sink is. And I was like, oh, awesome, or something like that, or awesome. And then I let the door close, and there was a guy standing there. And the thing is, I don't normally exclaim things out loud to myself. I might think that in my head, but I was just in a good mood and whatever, and I was tired, and I just saw lights, and I was like, awesome. And then the door closed, and the guy's like, ah, ha, ha. He didn't say anything to give me a look like, what's awesome? Are you trying to hook up with me? Are we buddies? Are you crazy? Why are you yelling awesome when you come in the room? And I'm like, clearly you didn't see the lights, but it was a little embarrassing. And so he left, and then I, did my thing in the glorious lights and left. So Mary's Hamburger, awesome. The other thing we did, I forgot, is we went to Alley Cat Comics, which is literally down an alley, as you can see, which is a fun comic store. I've been there before 2 years ago, where I had put some of my comics in the store on commission, which is where they hold, not commission, consignment, which is where they hold it. They don't give you any money, and then if it sells, they give you part of it, and you keep part of it. And I think their deal was they give you 90% or 100%. And look, my book was still there, all of them. I don't think I sold any of them. Maybe, I don't think I sold any of them. So it was a bittersweet thing. This happened before, where it's like, oh, nobody bought it. I get no money. Nobody was excited to see it, but a year later, 2 years later, it's still on the shelf in a store, so that's good. Like, my book's out there. They didn't throw it away or put it in the 50-cent bin, but still. So the next day was Sunday, back at G-Fest. You can see somebody here had an awesome homemade Godzilla suit. I think it might have been their own design. And then upstairs, I saw these 3 different Godzillas being instructed by the master himself. Kenpachiro Satsuma, who played Godzilla in all the Heisei 90s ones, including Biollante, which is my art he is signing here. I ran away from my table for like 15 minutes, ran up there, was able to meet him, got a signature, got a picture. I gave one to him as a gift. Who knows if he wants it or not, but he has it. But it was great because he lives in Japan. He had come out here a few times over the last couple of years, but he officially retired, so he wasn't coming out anymore. And I missed him every time I was at a show he was at because, I was working. And this time, there was another guest who canceled because of sickness or something, and so he filled in as a favor to the show and to the other guest who he knew. And so this was him coming out of retirement to do one last show in America. So I just left my booth for like a half hour. I'm like, too bad, I'm going to get this. And as you can see, I'm just cycling through some more stuff. This is another commission I had to do, Baragon, which surprised me that Baragon is he's sort of like a cult hit, fan favorite, not just at this show, but I've done a few of him here and there. And this guy, oh my gosh, I always forget his name. When I say Titanosaurus, I could be wrong about that. He's another like B level, I guess, not one of the super top tier, but not too low either. And this was another kid sketch of Anguirus. You can see the difference. I just did a quick head sketch and threw in some heavy blacks. And here's me screaming at people by my table. So yeah, the show was wrapping up. Oh, and this is the actor who played, I believe it was M11, the cyborg in the Heisei series. He comes a lot and he does a lot of translating. He's a nice guy, and he got a picture with my table mate there who had done a picture and given it to him. And this is me videoing how people are closing up early, which I show you at every event, and it is always a pet peeve of mine. Here you can see my underwear and socks. These are clean. In my suitcase that I'm using as packing material. I talked about this before, how I reuse it. And goodbye. Goodbye, G-Fest 2018.
Another hot day. So where are we on the timeline? Well, it's Monday morning, afternoon. It's almost 12 o'clock. G-Fest is over. I'm here for an extra day to hang out with my chummy compadre, who has been putting me up for this time. Going to meet him at a place called Taco in a Bag, which I had once before, and it was delicious, and I was deliberately not having it on one of the days when I was going to be sitting behind a table by myself for many hours interacting with people, just in case the Taco in a Bag place caused unwanted side effects. My buddy could deal with that, or I could take a break and be by myself for a while, which wouldn't be options otherwise past days. You know what I'm saying? Oh, I'm tired. I didn't get a good night's sleep until last night. So for like 3 nights in a row, got terrible sleep, did the show, ran around doing stuff, and yet somehow I feel worse today. It might be that it's catching up with me, over several days. It might be that I don't have that jolt of adrenaline of like, oh man, it's time for the show. I don't know, but yeah, I'm really tired. I'm walking the 10 minutes and it feels like 17 miles.
Here is my taco in the bag. They had 2 different specific vegetarian options. I do not remember which one I got. I tried both while I was in town. This is my buddy Kyle chowing down on his carnivore version. I highly recommend it if you're in the area. It's the food's good. It's a little pricier than your average fast food, but it's very unique and worth it. And they have a fun decor, including this weird bathroom I'm about to show you. Yes, video from the bathroom. Don't worry, I don't use it, but you can see it's like there's a mannequin and there's trophies, and it's got personality. And here is the theater, which I will talk about in a moment. This looks fake. It looks like a stock footage picture, but that is actually from inside this theater, which is pretty cool. And again, fun stuff that Kyle is showing me in town.
So I had some taco in a bag for breakfast, lunch, and then went to go see 3 Identical Strangers in this old movie theater called the Music Box, which is super old, vintage, I don't know what the word is, rustic, charming, good. Anyway, we saw that. That was interesting and good. And I got to kill a little time while he's running an errand real quick, just like an hour and a half. And I had big plans. I want to go out and explore, but I basically just laid on the floor for a half hour, 45 minutes, doing nothing, looking at my phone because I'm exhausted. As I said, I'm feeling better. I had a lot of caffeine today too. I've been allowing myself to have caffeine, and it's not even doing much. I'm still like, okay, I'm awake. But I have a little time left before he gets back, and I'm walking to Dark Tower Comics, which is about a half a mile from his house. I've just enough time to get there. I'm back, and I'm gonna see if they'll carry the Horror A4. Why not? Check it out. Check out the comic store anyway. But I got my backpack full of comics, so
Here's the exterior of the shop. It's nice and colorful and bright. Inside, it's dark and towery. No, they actually, it's nice and bright and fun, and they got a lot of original art. You can see there's Kevin Maguire and a bunch of other people, all Captain America. I guess their whole thing is that they commission people to do Captain America, which is interesting considering it's called Dark Tower. You'd think it'd be called like All American Comics or something. But regardless, it's a good shop, and I did pick up some 50-cent comics, and they also decided to carry my book, The Horror A4, issue 1, not issue 2. They said, let's see how it does. And I'm like, all right, I don't live around here, and it's on consignment, which means I'll never see it again. So what's this sign we've been staring at? Well, this is the Galloping Ghost arcade, and it's awesome. We went there in the evening. At night, you could see the black. It's great. It's one of the best arcades I've ever been to in my life. And that's saying something, because I make a point of going to retro arcades every chance I get for the last several years. And several being like 10. And I've been to arcades back when they were a real thing, and I've been to California Extreme. There's Mr. Kyle playing Dragon's Lair, which is most of what we did was play Dragon's Lair 2. Watch this.
Oh, here we go. Oh, sword.
Here's a game, I think it was called Time Traveler or something like that, and it was sort of a hologram. And I remember this coming out towards the end of the heyday of the video game era. Time Traveler. And right next to it was a game called Holosseum, which was a fighting game, which I had never seen before, done in the same style. And it was terrible. The controls were awful. The Time Traveler game was more similar to Dragon's Lair, where you just pick left, right, up, down. What you can see here is a Godzilla fighting game and an Ultraman fighting game, both of which I'd never seen. They may have existed on Super Nintendo or in Japan or whatever, but I'd never seen them in an arcade at least. And there's a lot of games like that I had either never seen or never seen in an arcade. But they also had all the classics like, there you go, Star Wars, and I don't even know what he was playing there. But one thing I didn't like, one of the things that keeps this from being like a contender for the absolute best, is it was very bright. And in my opinion, arcades should always be a little dark, kind of like Twilight, and they should have, because the reflection on the screen. A lot of these games, like there's a big like light in the middle of it. You can see there on the Sailor Moon, which is another game I never knew existed. And they're, again, on the Dragon Ball fighting game. This was awesome. They had Macross and Mazinger Z, which is Robotech and Tranzor Z in America, or Great Mazinga. I never knew they existed. I certainly had never seen them in an arcade form. I played both, not as long as I'd like. We were there for hours, but there was so much to see that there just wasn't time to play everything. Plus, we had to frustratingly play Dragon's Lair 2 for most of that time. But we did sample a little bit of everything, and it was pretty awesome. But this machine was probably the one I was most excited for, because unlike the Godzilla and Ultraman machines, which I was also excited for, the gameplay was actually pretty fun, and they were kind of flyovers, and there was, if you picked the different characters, you could pick Mazinger Z or Great Mazinger or whatever, and it would be different abilities. There's the Holosseum I was talking about before, the holographic fighting game, and it seemed exciting, and it really brought me back, because I remember in like the early 90s being that kid that's like, oh my gosh, look at this awesome new thing, I'm going to pay $1, it's going to be the best ever, and then it was like, oh, this is disappointing. And I had the same experience when I played Holosseum. These are just pictures of some of the decorations they have up of various game ads of like weird women dressed like, in a showroom showing off of a car, but dressed in space age, I guess, outfits. I don't know. And then this game, Darius Burst, seemed new-ish, and it was like a 6-player spaceship shoot 'em up kind of game. But the main thing that I had going for was the music. Deathstalker right there was a Laserdisc game that was like a horror, choose left, right, up, down kind of thing, but it seemed to be commissioned or restored by the people who own Galloping Ghost. And this Sonic the Hedgehog, you can see the Mighty Armadillo and Ray the Flying Squirrel as opposed to Tails and Knuckles. This was some unreleased, or at least unreleased in America, like before Sonic and Knuckles officially came out, I guess. I don't know. It was a little unclear to me. And it had strange gameplay too. And of course, a Three Stooges game, which I'd never seen. Krull, which I used to say was super, super rare. And it is pretty rare, but I have seen it 3 or 4 times now. Granted, this is at like video game shows and specialty shops, but the first time I saw it, it blew my mind. Like, I can't believe this existed. I haven't seen this in over a decade. Now I've seen it 3 or 4 times in a decade, so way less rare. But overall, yeah, this arcade is great. It has a good mix of rare games, popular games, unique things, good decor. But like I said, the lighting needed to be changed. Oh, here's a bunch of pixel art, a bunch of 8-bit stuff. You can see Battletoads and Tapper and stuff like that. Again, really cool decor. If they could fix the lighting, it would really help. It's also a little crammed into each other, so it was fine because we were there in the middle of the night on a weekday, but I could see if it was busy, really bumping into people a lot, which could be problematic. This was a sit-down Star Wars game Kyle was just playing there that I had never seen. It looks like a variation of one I had seen, but anyway.
So it's Tuesday, and I'm heading out today a little before dinner time. I've been packing up. You can see these are my two main suitcases, which should now easily be underweight because I've sold a bunch of stuff. However, because I didn't weigh them, I'm not sure. There's definitely less than 100 pounds between the two, but I can't have 60 and 10, you know what I mean? So I've been trying to balance it out. As you can see, I've got paper packing around it. I've got still have clothing packing around it. One of the problems is my laundry, which was packing, is now dirty, so I'm going to have to break this down into 2 bags and pack it. And then I have my backpack, which I keep comics and a hoodie and things that I made on the plane. And I'm charging my electronic devices and go.
On the way to the airport, this is just Chubby Wieners. Thought it was a funny sign. We stopped at Challengers, which is a comic store, which is another one that had a lot of great original art. Chicago, again and again, impresses me with the amount of comic stores and the different types of comic stores. And this one was more of a, standard sort of superhero shop, but they had some toys, and they promoted independent comics, and they hosted 24-hour comics days, and Kyle had a lot of good things to say about it, so we stopped there, took a couple pictures out front, and they did indeed take both copies of my book on consignment, which was nice. Stopped to eat at this place. This is not where we were eating. This was the parking lot. We ate at like a diner place, but it had this crazy cow, so I was like, moo cow. I don't know. I don't even know what that was. I just thought it was crazy. That's the actual food we ate, which is not cow. And then I was off to the airport. Now, I had to stop over in Las Vegas, so they had slot machines you could play, and they had this room. It was a smoking room, which I'd never seen before. And I did not play any of the slot machines, but I was tempted. If they had one that was like Star Wars or Godzilla or something, that might get me. But I did get this weird Auntie Anne slushie that had Sour Patch Kids that I thought would be mixed in. They were just on the top. Disappointing! And here is the second batch of my swag from the weekend. You can see my signed print that I got, and there are 2 art prints that I traded. The one that has the 6 colors, I don't know who did it. The artist signed their name, but I can't read it, and I don't think I got a business card, and yeah, so I can't link to them below. But that Power Rangers one was by Lenny Romero Lenzations. I will link to him, of course.
It's Tuesday afternoon. I am unpacking / repacking because I'm going to San Diego Comic-Con tomorrow. Not to sell, just to participate. And I was looking at my bag, and I got one of these TSA notices that says they looked through my stuff, which is annoying, but whatever. But look at this. This is completely broken. It's supposed to not detach there, so they somehow managed to snap it in 2 different places, there and there. And it's sort of crushed. Is it this piece? No, it's on this side. It's sort of crushed on the side right here. Now this is not hard to open. They didn't have to break it open. It just pops off. So either some idiot's like, what do I do? Smash, smash. Or they took it off, laid it down, and then dropped some heavy crap on top of it. Either way, that's annoying because it's usable, but it was in perfect condition, and now it's kind of busted up as though I've had it for 10 years, even though it's relatively new. And here we are at the end of the video. I'm a bit of a mess. I need to shave, but whatever. You need the info. So here's what's going on. I enjoyed my trip out to Chicago as I did last time, mainly because I have friends there, and even if the show doesn't go well, I can see them. But the show did go well. I don't really get to enjoy the show. I mean, I ran through the dealer's hall for a few minutes, and then I quickly went and got to meet the one celebrity I wanted to meet. And as luck would have it, I was able to do that in under a half hour, which isn't always necessarily going to be possible. So if you are thinking of going as an artist or as a vendor or something, and still being able to enjoy the show, you can't really. You don't get to go to any panels, you don't get to do anything but sit at your table. Maybe if you have someone you're splitting the table with or a helper, then you can get away a little bit more. And if you're selling merchandise, you could even split the time evenly, it doesn't matter. But if you're the artist, you really kind of want to be at the table for commissions, for signatures, to talk to people about your art. You don't really want to be away from the table for any length of time, even if you have somebody to help watch it with you. Now, I'm going to get into nuts and bolts and just give you numbers of like, was it worth doing? 2 years ago I did it when it was upstairs. I had less product, it was 2 years ago. My art hopefully has improved since then. But it was basically the same, where I had to pay for a plane ticket, pay for the table, and I had a free place to stay. And I remember basically breaking even. I might have made like $100, $120 profit, which then was gone with food and things like that. So I barely made any money. This time I did better. Still not amazing, still not gangbusters, but I'll break it down for you. I live in California, near San Francisco-ish, so I had to fly out to Chicago. That plane was $400, and that's about what I remember it being last time. You can maybe get a little cheaper, a little more expensive, but that's kind of an average price. So $400 to get to Chicago. Now, luckily, my buddy Kyle was able to pick me up from the airport, drop me off at the airport. He was able to give me a place to stay. And he was able to drive me at least the first and last days to the convention so I could drop off all my stuff and bring it back to his house. The rest of the time I took a train, or the one day I met my other buddy Mike. So there's a little bit of cost involved there, but not much, $10, $20 total for buses, trains, whatever. That's probably even more than I spent. So I'm not really gonna worry about that right now. So the plane was $400. The table was $40. The tables are very reasonable. The only thing expensive about it is that it's so far away from me. So if you live in the Chicago area, it's super, super reasonable. Now that table is $40. That doesn't include the cost to be an attendee at the show, which I'm blanking on now. I want to say it's like another $40, $50. So it might be $100 total to attend the show and get a table. But if you're just getting a table, it's $40. So I'm just counting that cost. So $440 is my cost. And that's because I have a person to stay with, a person to give me some rides, and you know, that's on the low end if you're coming from across the country, as I did. Now, how much money did I make? I made just under $800 total. That's what they call gross. That's all the money I took in. That's not accounting for printing costs. That's not accounting for anything like that, or water I had to buy at the show or whatever. So my sort of net profit, and this is a little misleading because again there are other costs associated, after the plane and the table is about $350-ish. So if you take, I'm making up numbers now. So I made about $800. Of that, about $350 was profit. I'm going to take $50 out of that for incidentals at the show and printing costs. Maybe a little bit more, but I'm just kind of ballparking it. So safe, rough estimate is I made profit $300, which isn't bad in like the scheme of the world. Hey, I made $300. But that was for 3 days at the show working, not even including the travel to and from. I mean, basically it's 5 days out of my life where I'm working. Now, I expanded a little bit, stayed an extra day, saw my friend, had some fun in between, which is good and bad because it made the trip more worthwhile and made the profit a little less important because I was visiting friends, but it also made me more tired and burned out at the show. And when I was done, I just couldn't do anything for a day or two when I got home. Although I did have to go to then San Diego where I was burned out there more. But anyway, I digress. The point is, most of the time, if you're going to a show and you can do it where you could stay with a friend or a family member or split the room with another artist, that's going to help a lot. All the away shows I've gone to so far that, you know, I had to stay overnight, I've either been able to drive, so I got a hotel but I didn't have to pay for a plane, or I've known someone in the area so I could stay with them so I didn't have to pay for a hotel. Even that, with that working, and even I've had like, made a little bit of money. You know, some people might do better, might do worse. I can't speak for how well your things might sell if you decide to do it. But because it was a specific Godzilla Fest thing, and I knew some people there, you know, not just friends, but not just non-art friends, but people at the show I knew, so I reconnected with them a little bit, tried to network. I'm terrible at networking, but, you know, that is a good place to do it. And more importantly, getting my art out there, getting it seen by fans. A few people bought my comic, not as many as I'd like. Again, you know, a handful. But I did sell I sold tons of pins and a bunch of prints. What's funny is I had 2 new prints that I did specifically for G-Fest. And they sold okay. I sold a few of each, but they weren't selling significantly better than my old prints. And it's funny because I feel like, oh, the art is so much better and they're new. So anybody that bought from me 2 years ago or has bought from me online or seen my stuff, this is the new stuff. And it didn't do any better than any of the others. There was no real front runners, as a matter of fact. Often at a show, it's like, well, this is the print that did really well, or everybody was asking for this. And at this show, it was sort of all over the place. A couple commissions, like pins was the winner, but it wasn't even like one pin. It was just pins in general. So it's really hard to predict what to bring for like the next show, you know? Speaking of next shows, the next away show I have a show this weekend coming up. If you're in the Bay Area of California, it's Merced Comic-Con or California Republic Comic-Con. I'll be there for one day. Then I have a local toy show and a few other local shows, but the only other big show I have this year, away show, is in Florida, in Orlando, near Universal, and that's in November. That's Ranger Stop, which is a Power Rangers convention. And this will be the first away show I've gone to where I have to fly and I have to get a hotel room. And again, the table there, I think it was 150, which is sort of middle ground as far as how expensive. The table cost by itself wouldn't really worry me, but I'm looking at $400 or so again to fly and $300 or so for the hotel room now. So 7, 8, I'm looking at like in the ballpark of $900 going into Ranger Stop. For comparison, Power Morphicon, which I just did, I was able to drive down and I made about $1,100, $1,200 in that range. And that wasn't all profit. Again, that's just all the money I took in. So if I make the same amount of money at Ranger Stop that I did at Power Morphicon, at best I'll be making $100 or $2, you know, because 900, 1200, I'm fudging the numbers a little bit, but you know, I know I'm gonna have to get a taxi or a Lyft or whatever to and from the convention center. You know, I'm not gonna have anybody to give me rides, so that's gonna add up. So like, if I do as well as I did at Morphicon, I will be making $100 or $2. And again, that's for like traveling across country, working for 3 days, not including the travel, you know, 5 days out of my life of work, and getting like $100 or $2. So hopefully I do better, but if not, it's that same thing of like, I do a lot of ranger art and I'm trying to, you know, get my brand out there, but it's not a sustainable thing. It's not something you can keep doing several times a year, every year, unless you're making money, or unless people are giving you free hotel rooms or something like that. You know, the bigger celebrities, and I think even some celebrity artists, occasionally they get like a free table, and then when you get even bigger, it's like, oh, well, we'll fly you out here or give you whatever, you know. So like, I wouldn't mind making a couple $100 if it was like I was there as a guest, but since I'm a working Joe, it's just a lot of work for very little money, and I do enjoy it, but it's unsustainable. I can't keep doing it. You know what I mean? There's other life obligations and things like that might benefit more from me spending 5 days working on my comic, or I could make 2 brand new 11x17 prints and sell them online or at local shows, and you know. So I'm not saying don't travel, but I'm saying be smart about it. And this Ranger Stop one is definitely like a big experiment, and I feel like if it goes well, great. But if it doesn't, then there's another one in Texas that I might try because it's a little bit closer and it'll be the same thing, but less cost to me. And, you know, if that doesn't go well, who knows? I might just stick to going to Chicago once a year and down to Morphicon every other year, you know. But I don't mean this to sound negative. Again, I'm kind of getting off track. G-Fest went well. I made more money than I made last time. I mean, I easily doubled what I made, but that still isn't a lot. I mean, if I double what I make next year, and I'm planning on going back next year, that's even better. But I got to figure out ways to streamline my costs. And I don't know how, because I'm already staying with somebody. So I just got to make more money somehow. Money! And I hate that it's about money. And it's not, I mean, it is and it isn't, you know what I mean? But it is hard to justify taking these trips if I'm losing money, certainly forget it. And if I'm not making much money, that's still also hard, you know. But we'll see. I'll do it again next year. Hopefully it'll continue this ramp up. And certainly if you're going just for fun, then you win, because you don't have to worry about the same stuff I have to worry about. You just have to worry about not spending too much. But anyway, that's been my experience. G-Fest, but also Chicago. Good goes. I'm Gazbot. Thanks. Three, 1, 2, red, black, and blue. Hello, silly babies. Unacceptable. You seem pretty chilled out for someone drinking coffee. Seems like you should have a lot more energy. Like these people, they don't have energy. Let's read a sign. It says, it's backwards now. I can't read it. Drink your coffee. As I was saying, well,
here's a lavalier test, testing the lavalier.